Zobe Sangi Ripoda Shasu Dempa Devara Sheba Jidin Kemba Kivu Due Kalu Yurva Lana Meba Ladam Minangi Damba Sangi Chomde Bejewa Shaya Dumba Lan Chazelo Judu Gyansu Jiwo Kanze Kanze Zo Jadante Sache Dela Gomba Temurne Mani Jidin Dela Chochi Eze Kiba Kula Jazelo Nada Kuma Chote Zutamo Isi Yazu Sengi Rumbola Shaba Jide Suna Lamewa Gumbo Yuni Kula Jazelo Senjo Demba Jime Daweja Sendo Rawa Kula Jazelo Dute Jena Siva Zumaji Nyame Kinyi Kula Jazelo Obo Tuje Shedeva Tamche Kimbe Dumbaho Sona Yenten Yasu Shin Deshin Shela Jazalo Dabe Deja Javagir Kewe Nyesun Lesho Tidu Dena Jugirva Jigir Jela Jasa Yone Jove Layande Lavan Dava Rabun Shingi Damba Yenten Dindu Laya Jazalo Tiya Vijaji Yewa Runsum Sopark Jangi Sine Yonsu Dene Sange Dembaye Karmara Limamedan Yuma Seba Jugurda Nina Lodan Tindamu Duje Jana Tindamu Sanandi Tamje Sipayi Kuban Duni Gangi Ratu Nada Chive Labjule Sive Sole Dumo To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, nor of the world, supreme guide of human beings should be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, the supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, and said, I am supreme in this world. To you, who were wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the foe of false, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death. Page 4. Page 11. Thus I have heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha on Vulture's Peak, together with the great assembly of monks and bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was totally absorbed in the concentration that examines all phenomena, called profound illumination. And at the same time, the noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, was engaged in the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, how should those of good family learn who wish to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, replied to the Venerable Shariputra, saying, O Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of good family wishes to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, should look at it like this, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, karmic formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are neither impure nor free from impurity. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no karmic formations, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no tongue, no body, no mind. There are no spheres of the eyes up to the spheres of the mind. There are none of these all the way up to the sphere of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, nor is the destruction of ignorance. There are none of these all the way up to there is no old age and death, nor is there destruction of old age and death. Thus there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, all the bodhisattvas hold to the wisdom gone beyond. And because there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond falsity, they reach beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times, by relying on the wisdom gone beyond, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, most perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the wisdom gone beyond, the mantra of great insight, the unequaled and unsurpassed mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as the truth, for there is no deception. The mantra of the wisdom gone beyond is proclaimed. Tayata gati gati paragati parasangati bodhisattva. This is how bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn the profound wisdom gone beyond. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and praised the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, very good, son of good family. It is exactly like that. The profound wisdom gone beyond should be practiced exactly as you have said, and then the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the whole gathering, and the world with its gods, men, anti-gods, and spirits, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the Blessed One. So ends the noble discourse on the essence of the wisdom gone beyond.
Lamrim basingida other tandas maranzo sem mashiva sem dine jene jama sem shiva ne sanji ki sem bakadar sem matuva mashiva di ne shiva chin ane jama ta sanji ki kula jure sanji ki tugi chembata jiba chatuya to sa lamrim bak dilane lamrim chin do shegi yor se da lamrim bak te no lo tende reso.
Today is our class on the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. Stages of the path to enlightenment describes the progression from a mind that is unpacified to a mind that is identical with the Buddhas, that is at peace and pacified, and also endowed with omniscience as the Buddha mind is. This is the same path, so this is the path, and these are the stages on the path.
Lamrim Quran is subject to Lamrim Ribadi, God connected with the Taka Yores, na God Goshini Tinzus, Goshini Tinzu ne, and then Ta, and then Shineda Tadonki, Parki Lamri Ribastin, Ribati the Sanam Gone Kuba to the Dichi or
From beginning to end, what does the text comprise of? It is comprised of the beginning, how to rely upon the spiritual mentor, and onwards all the way to the end of the text, the serenity meditation and special insight.
Boy, the Lamjir Balala, Maranzota, Sanju Lamjir Basingita, Tamwale, Shini Tinzula Malapon, Maranzo, Shini, Laboyak, and Turbacheta. And if I get some person going to be named and one of that, understanding something the subject Ola. And in that Lamrim Tiki. Chugi Chewa Lamrim Parang Miss Jebabo Kande and Chewa you met. And then Chugi Chewa the Kande you met. 아니 저와 이득이 줄어 니시 근데 지구 유명 이득 나만도 오늘 사진이 숨지 아니 마시고요 해서
These stages of the path begin with how to properly rely upon the spiritual mentor. But before the beginning of the text there, we consider the benefits of listening, contemplation, and meditation. This is the taxonomy of the text, which begins or entails the three major sections of the text. The three major sections of the text, including the greatness of the author, how it is that the author is great, the greatness of the Dharma, so how it is that the Dharma taught in the text is great, and then how one is to instruct in a text that is composed by a great author and is itself great. We finished these first two major sections on the greatness of the author and the greatness of the Dharma, or the instructions. These are complete. Now we turn our attention to the way in which one is to instruct in a text endowed with these two greatnesses.
아니 다 랑이 냠수 나야 랑이 냠수 남바 태양 아니 티버치고 쳐를 줘 티버치고 쳐서 줘 디고요 될라야 아니 굴롱이 전에 랑이 티버치고 쳐서 줘라 굴롱 자주 쓰미 아니 세다버들이 거는 semboreso.
Training in the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, which is a text containing all the major points of the path, is a practice. And in order for it to become a practice of authentic Dharma, a practice of the Mahayana Dharma, one must generate the proper mental intention beforehand, the mental intention that conduces to authentic Mahayana Dharma, and that is the generation of bodhicitta.
아니 랑이 태초에 년바다 저 쉐바 이내다 저 년바 이내다 만데 저 로존 제가 가리바 있나 양 아니 지 랑이 세대기 대두 다 상로 마다마 아니 치마 편제 아니 대한 랑이 편도 많이 봐 신기 신라 편배치도 아니 배 랑이 저 냠도 랑이 인사를 꾸는데 되지 거래서
The adjustment of one's intention so that it is bodhicitta while listening or while providing instruction, whatever the case may be. When one is practicing, the objective should not be to avoid suffering in this life and secure satisfactions in this life. The objective should instead be longer range to embrace future lives, and not only one's own prospects in future lives, but the prospects of all sentient beings, and one undertakes their practice on behalf of and for the welfare of other sentient beings.
Oh yes, that is the job of the Treatise. Manando that tanda manando with semi conditions, semi mashua. The tanda susul rame bato, semi energy pagi susul rame bato. Ani semi mashua sing, matuba mashua sing. Semi taking all your that lamji rimba de lamne, and semi sure sing, semi tua, semi sure. And send the same rangi be due to Rama Yuba. Oh, the religious swag, that me, the religious jungle, there is much.
So we have adjusted our motivation in this way. Now, the mind that undertakes practice, the mind as it is now is yet unpacified. It is not independent. It is not autonomous. It is undisciplined at this time. And through the practice of the path, one pacifies the mind, disciplines the mind, gains independence and autonomy of mind.
Oh, yeah, that's the same condition. But Chasan Dilasha, Sawan Dilla, Goshing and Dua, the window to give for Chasanya Chinisha. They go to over Majavasi over town Chinisha, and then on the Puj Shabayina, 아니 beauty 가르치기로서는 아니 beauty 아니 양 과도만 선제 양 기운의 선제 양야주 양 고심반의 선 양 기운이나 선지도 왔으나시다는 아주 샘디 샘 마투와 마시와 인자 샘디 주고내야 제가 강에 열었어 제가 강바 동바 나라 아니 beauty 샤바도 배도 열어서
Now, for example, take this room in which we are gathered now. It has these 4 doors where you may enter and exit, and then has all these windows. Imagine opening all the doors, opening all the windows, and then having a monkey, and the monkey could go out one window and come back in another window, go out one door and come back in another door, go out another window, come back in another window, and that describes the mind too, which is not pacified. It isn't disciplined, and so it can't abide. It cannot abide peacefully.
오이 따디 다다 칸바데 마저 지로 벨을 자로 와서 따디 수수 류를 자고 마란도 류를 자비 나는 마란도 가리어서는 칠레 류 나는 센스 나는 셈 요래 칠로들 류요 아니 셈디 류기 차시 가서 반바 되는 거스 삼삼 따고 류기 차시 가서 다시 비우도 거기 오늘 더만 나지 아니 셈디 류기 차시 가서 가는 수수 초 가war리기나 들어 셈디 때네 안 두수용 거 열어서
We have our external body, our outer body, and our inner mind. There are these two, the external body and the inner mind. And when the body is free to go in and out, as a monkey would go in and out of the room, then the mind's attention on that external body goes in and out too.
또 세상 땅하나도 가려서 섬로 땅하다 단단 알고는 이 맞는 최대 컨다 최고의 경쟁도 간대였으나 배나 만들 류디 만들도 뭔가 되게 제조도 되는 셰바 있나 뭔가 되게 제조도 되는 셰바 있나 강바 뷰다 보지 강바 빼 야보지 아니 수수가 라고도 요래서 강바데 수수 야고도 수수 녀고도 지나 아니 수수 강바데 대기로 강바데 대두 아니 수수게 강바데 다는 배주야 모땅 비난을 대시해봐 아니 기부지 대바이나 아니 강바드나는 강바 야고 얘네 수수 야고 차를 와서 강바 야고 얘나야 비난을 대단하게 마시고 수수 기부 대신이면은 아니 강바 야고 얘나 병이 말 와서 어디나 심하라고 단다 류디에 빼디빼다고 요래서
Now consider this. Consider why it is we need to practice the Dharma. It's because of this body that we have and how we are using it. Now, to give an example along the lines of what happens in our society, if we get a house, a comfortable place to stay, either we rent it or we've bought a house, then we can stay there. And if it's a well-made house and it's comfortable, then we can use it well and continue to stay there and enjoy our time there. But if we don't know how to comfortably appreciate the house that we have, it makes no difference that it is a well-built house, that it's a comfortable house.
베트나 시다나 하는 류디키는 아니랑 배주야고 땅체네 아니 경마라 캡산 라이즈 지자로 와서 세상 다 뒤용해야 된다 아니 나는 류디 다른 나라들로 다 강바들 마서나 강바에 뷰타고 규제 차상 약고 유교 교육촌에 매봐 근데지 강바들 아요 다 뒤나는 기부지 된 그랑게 그래서 농주 가르치고 나서 농주 시험 친구로 된낭신 아니 말하면서 당연히 밀리디 키제네 다 밀리디 배주지 땅제네 아니지 계산지 라바지 지야고 해서
So it is with this body that we have this present body, and it is free for us to make good use of. We may carefully be sure not to squander the opportunity, to use the opportunity of this body to find the benefits of the body. It's as though we have a very good house. It's made of very good materials. It's sound, and furthermore, we have all the resources we need too. So we have this body. It is like that, and we may use it, and we may carefully consider how it may be best used.
Oh yeah, 아니 수수 강반하는 대단한 맛이 받아 수수기 지금 밖에 체도 때 맞도이나 아니 이마지 미파 뉴로도 왔어. 강바 발렌도 쇼도 되나신 안도 누구데 되게 찍거를 야서 유연샤고 나오래 맞도 지금 수수를 나와요 말에 이마지 아니 지다 신지 키주스 그래. 뒤님한테 아주 배제 땅 투면은 정라가 해서
And so it is with this house. We may, if we know well how to be comfortable in the house and make use of the house, then we may, but it isn't as though it won't one day be taken back from us, and it will be taken back from us, just as our body will one day be called by Yama and will be taken from us.
Oh yeah, that the use of teacher to let maso 되는 루디 랭거디 아니 배주 친구 땅전에 아니 나 장주 나를 도좀 체 아니 다체디 된다 된바 아니 치만 대화랑 눈에 모여 대화 용어야기 나가 써야 차지 유 차방 받는 거나도 누가 요에 뒤지들 레스 달딜라니 다른 버전 거 레스.
So now use this body before it is taken away, use it in the most purposeful and productive way one can, and the most purposeful and productive way one may use and employ this body is in training on the Mahayana path. Through training on the Mahayana path, one's life, the present life, becomes meaningful, and furthermore, future lives and their meaning is established too. We have the cause for that productive use here in this body.
Oh yeah, that 다지만도 quality view patient but view the company quality 용 강하는 편 주고 되게 말했어요. 저 다지나시 말한줄 나오 셈 number share 봤어요. number share 봤어요. 딱 한다 네 먼저 디어다 계시 중에 디어 감쪽에 아니 난기 쉐바 투지 아니 쉐바 투지 칠레 돈사게 오모 투지 고 쉐바 투지 대사로 강바도 선자 프랑 배주 당사스나 오모 투지 어이 오모 투지 파게니 쉐바 오모 투지라 되는 배주 당에게 유되라 치 유튜브 소다 테러리자 최 투여와 어이 되지 요래서
I use that metaphor of the monkey going in and out of the building. Now the mind and the body is like that. It's like that with respect to the 18 spheres of sense consciousness and their respective external data. And those 18 sense spheres are this. There's first consciousness, the 6 sense consciousnesses, and then the 6 corresponding organs of those sense consciousness, and then the 6 respective objects, external objects that are the data for those sense organs.
Oh, that Sheba to so that you can you can big number Sheba, high number Sheba, J number Sheba, and then Luigi number Sheba, and then not with Amjunior. Oh, the dig the Sheba took the time.
For the internal sense consciousnesses, there are 6. The first is mental consciousness, and then eye consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, ear consciousness. These are the 6 internal sense consciousnesses.
Oh, yeah, that's Sheba took the one. That Sheba took the desert ombo troops. Ombo troops. Big ombo, Nayombo, Jeombo, Luigi ombo, Yi ombo, the two reasons.
And the 6 organs are the eye, nose, ear, tongue, body, and mind.
Oh yeah, that this is until you to make on meeting number Sheba page Tayagi, she soups soup six. And Amjo Yang dress it. Now to one mother teach it, check it, Lavatia de la Roche. And Luigi Jetia like Jesse, and the number Sheba page another choose. Or chi YouTube series.
And then the external sense objects are forms, sounds, scents, flavors, textures, and dharmas.
Oh yeah, that in an 이기 답변은 이기 넘버 쉐바티 아니 미 오모나는 수슈나 미 오모나는 수슈는 치료 따와 있나 아니 갈 때가 맞아 수 첸모 수 추주 수 제보 수 돈이 아니 다만 저 어떻게 통하게다가 미기 넘버 쉐바티기 미 오모나는 치 아니 수를 따 아니 이제 자화치를 당하는 좀 때는 자화치를 자화 갈 때는 어디 배 강보디 시우 야고도다 네 모래 닝지고도다 자바든 가는 것들이 천다야고 두다 세야겠다. 붙이로 가도다 입. 내 용어체디 아니 이 미리 넘버셔가 되지 그래서.
Now when mental consciousness engages the visual consciousness, and visual consciousness attends to form, that mental consciousness will encounter form that it can discriminate as big or small, pretty or ugly, and so forth. So it is that the mental consciousness has engaged the visual sense and sees form, and then will say things like, "This is a great house. This is nice stuff." It encounters form and shape, rather shape and color.
일단 미 넘버 쉐바도 그렇지. 나는 디젤은 타이 암조 넘버 쉐바들 나의 넘버 쉐바. 나의 넘버 쉐바들 그때 맞아 가르나. 아니 이게 넘버 쉐바들 나의 오모나는 수치. 아니 나의 오모디는 가르치는 아니 드라이님바다 마님바. 아니 드라베 첨보다 드라 춘주 아니 베자 땅아나도 베시게 녀부 시우도 게 녀부미도 아니 집에 게 사우도 베게 충다셔서 해야겠다. 그보라 아니 이게 넘버 쉐바들 나의 암시나는 오모나는 슈 아니 지금 유럽은 심버지고요. 그래서
For the ear consciousness, mental consciousness enters the organ of the ear, and then sounds that are discordant or not, pleasant or not, harsh or not, are encountered by the consciousness. And so it is that the mental consciousness employs the ear organ and has these discriminations.
And this is the Chia Lulu together. Oh, Titima Yakushu, Titima Mindusia Gamata, Namshi, Tanan, Nine, Timon Young, and Chiva, Chigi, Timbachigi, or lessons.
And then the mental consciousness enters the organ of the nose, and then discriminates smells, scents that are pleasant and unpleasant, food that smells tasty or not, when washing, scents that are clean or not.
Number seven, and check on the road, Marwata, Kuruada, Lotsawata, Kaudu, Kadidu, Kumudu, Mamudu, what is the Ekangani, number seven, J. Obanama, and Chief Rose.
And to mental consciousness enters the tongue organ, and then bitter tastes and sour tastes and sweet tastes and acerbic tastes. That the rest are experienced by mental consciousness through the tongue.
아니 루이 공부가 가르치기로 했으나 루제 잠바도 주바다 아니 차와다 차와다 어여다 인적이 있던 남시 니마 차워도 대린 남시 창모도 아니 대도로도 잡고 쉬고도 다 도로도 수고를 되어지는 잡고 미도 지금 망고 시에가 아니 루이 온고 이 넘버 쉐바 루이 온고 나로 마치 아니 지로기 제제도 좀 버치기가 그래서
And the mental consciousness enters the organ of the skin, and then discriminates softness and roughness, heat and cold. That's why we say the weather's hot, the weather's cold, or this clothing is comfortable or not comfortable. Mental consciousness through the organ of the skin discriminates and apprehends data that way.
오야 따디치 아주 쉐바라바기 아니 아주 샘 라바티 치료 유디 짐바치야기 아니 디니지데 레소노스.
This is the grosser level of mental consciousness that is apprehending external data in this way.
오야 따치 온보그 배주 땅모투야 치료도 아니 난샘 이 넘버 쉐바 조디 짐바치고 레소노스.
Dharmas or data that is not external but is rather inward and experienced by mental consciousness is a subtler level. Impermanence, past and future lives, the presentation of emptiness, the qualities of bodhicitta, these do not depend upon outer phenomena, outer data, but instead are their sense sphere is instead the inner mental consciousness.
아니 대사 오모투나나 데네 아니 치유 다초 간데지 요바이나다 오모투디나는 오모 셰바투디 짐바치그레 오모투디나 덴지그레 엔지야 유디다 치료이다 유가리 요바이나야 엔디나가 뒤디요 레소노스.
이야기할수 있습니다.
난 나로를 셰바투여와 되게 오모투나나 마 용제 아니 치료가 유 제제다 수다 통도 가리에는 최근에 요가 있나요? 다 건조기 쉐버 지혜리 아니 쉐버 통들 해서
these consciousnesses that enter the six organs, which are the six places where sensing external data occurs, consciousness enters those and apprehends external data in this way. And so we have these six forms of consciousness through these six organs of apprehension, experiencing external data this way, or data this way. Okay, so today, how do we apply this? How do we apply consciousness in this way? How are we to employ it? Pause for a minute and consider, and then share. So what are you going to use? Which organ are you going to use today? Today we will listen, and we are considering the benefits of listening. So our ear consciousness, our ear will be used, and our ear consciousness will apprehend the topic, the benefits of listening.
이게 넘버 쉐바디기 파테는 온번나라 때 아니 나들이 마이 람릭이 최기다 다 퇴네 아니 다 증거치고 레스 다 퇴버 증거치는데 퇴바데 아니 가르스는 퇴는 증거치고 퇴바데다 아니 개침부 이바디 아니 퇴바기 개침부 이바데다 표현들이 쉐고요 레스노지.
So then we will listen. That means our mental consciousness will turn to the ear organ, the organ of the ear, which listens, and we will apprehend with mental consciousness the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. And in order to apprehend what we hear, it is beneficial to come to acknowledge and know the value of what we are hearing. So we will consider the benefits of listening.
이 여자만 퇴중 시럽 스타일도 시럽 숨이어서 퇴중 시럽 삼중 시럽 공중 시럽 사와에 뉴스인데 아니 그런 규제 자료에서 퇴중 시럽이 매는 삼중 시럽 깨두고 말해 삼중 시럽이 매는 공중 시럽 깨고 말해 제가 고도수 찍지를 야만 저와지 규제가 되어요래서 디나는 통마를 가려고서 퇴중 시럽이 용어를 했어. 퇴중 시럽도 가서 전부 야천부 망아 이유가 있는 디직 삼중 시럽도 깨되어 망아 깨기 이유가 디직 삼중 시럽 톱체와도 망아 이유가 지식 공중 시럽도 톱체와도 망아 깨기를 해서
The wisdom arising from listening is one form of wisdom. There are three forms of wisdom: the wisdom arising from listening, the wisdom arising from contemplation, and the wisdom arising from meditation. And these three are in a causal relationship, one causing the next. Without the wisdom arising from listening, there will be no wisdom arising from contemplation. With no wisdom arising from contemplation, there will be no wisdom arising from meditation. And so they are meant to be joined together as we proceed, as they are causal, one related causally to the next. And so the greater one's wisdom arising from listening, the easier it is to develop wisdom arising from contemplation. The greater one's wisdom arising from contemplation, the greater one's wisdom arising from meditation will be.
냠도 중간 칸만 채워지 냠도 여가 있나 아니 다 퇴백이 되는데 남산 맞이가 퇴주 삼중이냐 삼중이 되는데 남산 공중이 다밖에 안 줄에 깨버체 그것도 냠도 치투고 거래서.
So in order to keep these three forms of wisdom together, always proceeding as a group, it's important to recollect what one has heard, and then based on what one has recollected, to preserve what one has heard and remembered through the awareness of meditation. No, I thought in order to reinforce this section to refer to minds and mental faculties, and to discuss minds and mental faculties in order to lend support to this section. So we've described consciousness. I described consciousness, and consciousness has various functions, or minds have various functions, and according to these functions, there are 7 forms of mind, or 7 forms of consciousness. These may be described as 7 forms of cognition. Should I begin from the end or from the beginning of these 7? I think I'll begin from the last of them, and that is mistaken cognition or erroneous cognition. This is the apprehension of a non-existent external data. For instance, the perception of blue mountains where there are no blue mountains, where there's no object, yet an object is apprehended. This is mistaken consciousness or mistaken cognition.
아니 로딩이 타 맞죠. 내가 도지 님바이네타 그나마도 지자라로 통고위에는 이 강바디 결로도 어쩌다 잘라지 유나 매너서 먼저 도봤음 도반이리도 원능신 대좀시도 유를 타 맞죠. 로 자 카드로 뭐 제니요 로 제니요 어디 지어야 해서 대좀
Next is doubt. Doubt, whether the thing that is doubted is existent or not isn't of concern right now. It's rather the mind that is doubtful, the mind that is suspended or has yet to form a determination. It hasn't seen a reason, and so it hasn't definitively drawn a conclusion, and therefore it is divided in binary itself.
아니 여바들은 다 마시면 배나가도 지 수수가 레가도 지 배나타는 발라는 뒤로 딱 자디 모두 통화 자디 거야 자디 아니요 자디 미다바 이나 미나 미다바 이네 양 규제로 때 통요 양 자디 계산도 드린도 간데 나선 미다바 이나면 계지기 유나 면선 되게 도바사네 아니 도바사니 그 로이도 내가 그래 도바데 이주스다 이주 최근 여버 타지도 마통 여버 짐바지 타지도 마통 되지 그래서 타지도 마통 세고 마도 봐
그래 라스
타지 이 수수고 쌤는 예바만이 거죠.
Now I'll pass over one form of cognition to this next, which is near conclusive determination. A nearly conclusive determinative mind, in which initially there was doubt. There was doubt: is this thing there or not? But then the mind gradually concludes that there is that the data is there, and then considers it. And for example, if one is hearing a sound, you're sure that the sound's there, but then the additional consideration of whether or not the sound is impermanent or not. Is sound impermanent or not? Has the mind encountered a rationale to conclude that sound is impermanent? So consideration of that. Is this sound disintegrating? Does the sound last or not? When the mind has some clarity about the data and has a near conclusive determination regarding it, this is one form of cognition.
디오데나 그가운데는 다 지시 봐서 아마 배는 아주 미기 잘라도 당고 직통 통은 디제를 양조 직통으로 봐 통네 그 동안 로디가 지시스를 지시 저 참막이 제를 깨게 제수 깨게 깨지 당고 깨지나 요나 그다음에 자라도 번나요 당고지 돈 이바도 숨바동으로 당고지 참말을 이바 숨바 시바 강을 지시스 곧로 유도를 해도다 또참 유도를 제 아니 유리 당고 통화 많이 받는 이바 숨바 돈이 이거죠 어디를 지시스 그래서
써보셔서 탄이 가르겠다.
지시스 지시스는 좀 당고지 통해 아주 이바 숨바 살 당고 양도 통하죠 어디
Okay. Yeah. And the next form of cognition is subsequent cognitions. When the visual faculty, the eye, sees something, and that first moment that it apprehends the object of sight, that first moment is a veridical cognition. It is a veridical cognition. Following it, say there are 5 moments of encounter with a visual form. The first moment is the veridical consciousness, and then the second, third, and fourth are conceptual and not the direct veridical cognition. They're conceptual, and they are this subsequent cognition.
Oh, that the name becomes 제바스를 뭔가 위기 소통하는 시 많이 봐. 예전 삼로 땅으로와 나도 체리도 지금 지난신도 리버 삼로다는 기진 삼로 땅에 나도 다미다바 레다 가르치는 다들 끼지만 해도 와 유진을 때 다미다바 하고야 아니 지금 안도 지금 다다 기진 내가 막 오직 아니 리버 배주 땅에 유진 배주 땅에 나도 들레다 들레샤선 삼로 스코르도 와 샘도 어디 삼이 샘들 제바스 그래서
Next is inference. And in inferential cognition, there's no actual form per se that the consciousness is apprehending. Instead, the mind is proceeding using logical demonstration. Science employs this, where a logical demonstration, draws the mind to a conclusion. For instance, is sound impermanent? It is impermanent as it is momentary. When one follows logical arguments to a conclusion, concluding this is the case, this is not the case, by the force of logical argument, that provides inferential cognition.
Oh, that is 무슨 아주 미리 더 수부통하다. 아니 암조 가도 다해야다. 나고 저번도 가도 라트는 잘라 거리 여번에 세부 통투해서 되는 무슨
And the last is direct valid cognition. Direct valid cognition sees a form directly, hears a sound directly, apprehends the datum directly.
다디한테 무슨 이발이야? 로 통화라야. 하게 딱딱 예바 매주 빼는 것도 수수 되는 다니고 시행고 예들가 말 미지도 드라이나 수사만 아വും 드라로 통화도 예바 매주도 어디를 무슨 이발 나나 망해 봤어. 통화까지도 예바 매 봤어. 나나 망해 봤어. 어디를 무슨 로들이 지기 어려서
Now, in a direct apprehender or direct apprehension, direct cognition, there is this second form in which the perceived object is not clearly identified. So it is a cognition to which it is a cognition directly apprehending an object, yet which doesn't identify it definitively, and this is another form.
Oh yeah, 다디 로리 뉘시에 가진 시에서 다나마도 표선 고숨디 아니 가와이어레 따야 예 치더라 아니 뉘시에 버레스 재산다 뒤인도 담다 퇴중 셔럽성이 됐다 담다 로리 중난 로 간대지어스나 아니 로디 다단다 이 이주 시마 유디 즉 유버 지바 간시라 아니 예바만 예바스 어스 로 시마더니 어디나 퇴중성도 어디나 여래서 거지.
There are these 7 forms of cognition, or seven forms of mental apprehension, and they are of these 7 minds. Some of them will be employed in the hearing and the wisdom that arises from listening and contemplation and meditation. So of these 7 minds, as we are considering wisdom arising from listening, it is actually the form of cognition that is non-conclusive identification of the data that is that we will employ here. Tani indicate tani mixer picture tani.
이 태선을 때 태선 탄이 도타 굉장히 유명해져마도 이제 최대 유효 관시가 아니 나게 세우진 탄이 타제 맞추고 저라. 어떻게 되죠? 이제서
It is a non-conclusive determinative cognition in which the object of discriminating awareness has been more or less identified, yet conclusive ascertainment of that object, of that thing, has yet to occur. This is the mind that will occur now.
다시 최종의 직성하나. 다 최종의 다시 뭐 삼종의 거울에서 이 제바는 굉장히 배주의 체는 아니 또 그래 이뭐 다 최고 다디 이제서 뭐 예반이야지도 어디 삼종수도 어디 나려서 제바는 그래서.
Now the wisdom that arises from contemplation will be inferential. It will proceed from an initial doubt and grow in conviction through supplementary evidence or logical demonstration to the point where a conclusion can be drawn. And so in the wisdom arising from contemplation, it is this inferential cognition that occurs.
일단 공주들이 무슨 말이에요? 무슨 공주들은 왜 완전히 미리 수통하지 어머들 커도 세부 통투 여러 이제는 결국 때문에 커도 통투가 지금 어디나시 아니 유칸의 강의 받으면 세부 통투가 돼 아니 공중을 해서
The wisdom arising from meditation will be direct veridical cognition. It is of the kind that sees or apprehends its object directly and does not rely upon or require any sort of logical argument, but rather directly apprehends the data.
다 삼중이 되는데 아니 공중이 줄내지는 그 공네 아니 유리 무슨도 동아 어디 쪽으로서 디스드자마다 뭐 동반이 되는데 되들 가지를 동반이 되는데 이체라 마치라도 소세만한 간대지나 동반이 이대 이사를 고때인데 이제 뭐 삼단들과 다 디네 가로지 이제 땡데를 땡을 땡중을 다 디다 아니 거기 땡데 동반이 제단데 동반이 러시아 삼바지 또 진이죠 이 또하게 하지만 공내 동반이 무슨도 통과 남주를 통한 깨우는데 아니 공중 깨러 왔어 진짜 저선 고랑 되면 괴대신 깨어서
Then the sequence through the wisdom arising from listening through the wisdom arising through contemplation and on through the wisdom arising through meditation proceeds from an initial uncertainty that rose in clarity so that it may be a non-conclusive determination. And from that non-conclusive determination then can follow an identification of something as potentially the case. For instance, all phenomena are empty. We hear that first and consider, perhaps it is so, but perhaps not. Then we learn of pratitya samutpada and dependent origination and suspect that it is the case that that phenomena are empty, and then considering that we have a conceptual awareness, which then through meditation gives rise to a direct realization, and this is the process.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't go in this. It doesn't go from this about the condition, somebody condition, and go by the condition. That is
So with that, then I've provided just a short explanation of the mind as it progresses from listening and the wisdom arising from listening through contemplation and the wisdom arising through contemplation and on through meditation and the wisdom arising through meditation, and how the mind is apprehending through those stages. So this is just a short description of that.
Oh, yeah, that indeed is about that. That Tubachiva, the Tango, Tubachiva, Tubachiva, draw, Tubachi, Tuba, the Mena, and it's in Pagarama. You demo, we give him ever, Tendam, put to never, Ranga, the water where the Dungan say, tugs around the Ragi never you do, Tambo Tubachi, some draw here. Any Chitula, and that shake your response, to be penny shake your response.
The first step is to listen, and in order to listen, in the first case, one must have an enthusiasm for listening. Without that enthusiasm, then the qualities that flow from listening won't arise. The meaning and purpose that arises from listening won't arise. We won't learn the method for avoiding dissatisfaction, the method for securing satisfaction without listening. So a description of the benefits of listening is the starting point in order to develop enthusiasm for listening.
Oh, yeah, Lamrim party Zugida. Lamrim, Chicken Lamrim. Oh, Lamrim Chimona. The Richmond and the country was not that terrible appearance. Because in Tibet, Shiver, you to be young and never top Siva. Oh, that big water matter to be carried signal the current to my Charlie share. That's it, that came in lay your pass. It came in lay your pass. Maybe King with Nanshuna, maybe King with Nanshuna. Sooner you were Bujani, meditation to Mitonga, says there. Uma cousin Tibet Chenmo Sheba, Tibet Dile Tobache, and Tibet Tumai Baba, Tibet Yang Deva Tops, the water must be there. Oh, that's it, Manguya, the Civil Party, and Georgia.
Chazon Kyorka.
Dibo Jordan, the Tibet number Sheba, Guru says with the number Sheba, oh, the
아니 니나 식지 니나야
니나야 당고들 가서
그렇지
진짜 김네 레이어 봐 맨날 주바나 손은 요 주장이 위대시도 우리 동화.
이대와 망화를 겨루다. 아니 케베 나파를 겨루다. 디기 아니 디기
딩원도에
딩원라 에
딩원어
니슈 강시나 디데 덴바단 덴바를 겨루다. 우주단 덴바 디라
어디로요?
알았어.
아 내가 저기 말이 강나야.
디강에
그래서 가는 이 뭐 뒤시도 가는 말도 디가나 여기가는 저 때문에 저 주변에 구글라서 매진 넣으셔. 어디가 맞아.
Okay, so on page 56, now we're going to go right back into the text. First we have on page 36, through hearing, phenomena are understood. Through hearing, wrongdoing is overcome. Through hearing, what is meaningless is eliminated. Through hearing, nirvana is attained. Just as someone dwelling inside a house and shrouded in complete darkness has eyes but does not see the forms that are there, so also a person born of noble lineage, although possessing intelligence, does not know until told what is virtuous and what is not. Just as one with eyes sees forms by using a lamp, so through hearing what is virtuous and what is not, you will understand what should be done.
어떤 친구가 저한 친구들이 토도 레버가 타고는 두스 근데 나로로 외기는 영상 내버지 한번 나온지 이버지 한번에 한번에 나고나 니나는 잘라대 망고이요 그에다 세다는 술롱주 잘라대 마차사를 되게 고담 친구지 여바이 되지 아니 디나는 수술을 가려서나 디나는 따투에 미드 대마 나로 잘라 여바 나 수술을 따야 미드 대마 유나양 아니 그 잘라되게 마통한테 가리려 말레스 지워대 가서 그래서 아무 큰바디 고담도 친구지 이거 디나는 잘라 비타고 망고 여바지 수술을 따야 미드 여바 대마 차상 이나양 디나는 잘라되게 마통한테 아니 가르쳐 말레스 지워대 어디 지웠으면 좋겠어.
Now, just to open up the verses, just as someone dwelling inside a house and shrouded in complete darkness has eyes but does not see the forms that are there. In a big house, the storage room where the wealth of the house is stored, a storage room with all sorts of clothing and stored dry goods and other important possessions. It's all there, but it's dark, and there's a sighted person, a person who is able to see there, but as the room is dark, they can't see. So what in that case needs to happen?
다디 빼지난 되면서 뭐만 넣으면 되면 넣어요라다 넣어요. 대단 왜도 보고도 와서 왜도 여바이나 아니 왜도야 넣어도 빠른 샤비 나 잘라 가렸다고 얘는 먹었다고 유명이나 잘라 양렸다고 유명이나 자산 통계를 왔어. 재산 때 거기 통약 왜 보고도 되나시 아무도 동반 얘기 내로 인하다 출 람림 다다시 보고 얘나양 아니 퇴바되면은
So then what is needed at this point? Something that allows the sighted person, the person who can see, to see. The person needs a lamp. Now, in the past, when there was no electricity, one needed to light a lamp. Now we have electricity, one needs an electric light. And so when that light is turned on, then whatever's in the room, however much there is, can be seen. What sort of quality it is can be seen. Everything can be seen, but you need the light in the first case. So whether it's the nature of things as they really are, emptiness, or the stages of the path to enlightenment, whatever the object of knowledge is, without first hearing of it, there's no knowing it.
아니 저거 무슨 저거 당만한절로 지금 최제기 최산지 땜바 지된도 상계 지된도 줘봐 되게 땜바 내봐 땜베기 된다 대시 전이 기겐 유봐 아니 랑 되게 랑라 되게다 지금 공부 차단 간다지 류데 요반다지 난게 셈이야데 셰바랑 신도 맨내버데 많이 봐 셰바랑 신도 내 공부 참 공부 교육 매봐 되게 차상 지금 여가 지금 미 루지 미 루지 랑 요래서
Now the lesson to remember here then is that today the house per se that we find ourselves in to be illuminated in all of its bounty and all that it has is the precious human body. It like the house with the storage room with all of the food, clothing, and other things. The human body, the precious human embodiment, with its 18 leisures and endowments, is that which we need to identify and see clearly. The Buddha, those 18 leisures and endowments include that the Buddha has visited the earth, that the teachings of the Buddha remain, that there are teachers who remain who are competent to explain the meaning of the teachings, that we have the faculties and native intelligence to comprehend them, and all of these are qualities in the storehouse of the precious human embodiment.
아니 가리스는 삼백이 아니 랑게 레버다 녀바 예치 투야게 알루드디아 수수 대요레 사짐 수통야게 미 여바나시 미 수통아 여바나시 마랑돌라 랑돌기 데 수수 라야게 랑바다 더바 제야게 니미기 차상 셰버 체베 루드디아 먼저 대요레 소시.
And then this precious human embodiment, with what else is it endowed? It is endowed with the native intelligence that allows, upon listening, allows a person to discriminate between what is beneficial and what is not beneficial, that which should be adopted and that which should be rejected. It is like the sighted person in the dark room. They have the eye to see form. Similarly, we have the native intelligence to identify and discriminate between practices to adopt and practices to reject.
라한다 시엔 탐제를 대화 중국 요바데 아니 맞아 가르치니다 맞아 마시바데 아니 라네 마시바레스나 아니 가신 마시바레스나 마나도로 단다고 켜바 마중화 되기 아니 레바레스 다 켜베이나 이게 뭐가 쉐바 그거레스.
Now, this native intelligence has the potential to recognize that by the force of non-virtue, by the force of pathological self-grasping, self-love, the mental afflictions arise. And from the arising of mental afflictions follows necessarily dissatisfaction. Now, on the other hand, from cherishing others arises love and compassion, and from love and compassion, endless satisfactions. Why is it that we are unaware of that? why is it that we haven't accustomed ourselves to life with that understanding? It is because we haven't listened. And so it is so for that reason, one must know the value of listening is the growing familiarity with this.
오예 딱 하나 말한 적이 표바디 여바이나 아니 가르치게 됐으나 다지 고단나로 빠르샤이나 아니 잘라 거리여봤어 통구도 왔을 때나지 표바디 여바이나 아니 라게 냐메 제야 갈래 가리빵고 가리랑고 저런 세싱세와 통거를 해서
Now, just as in a storeroom, until the light is turned on, that which is there can't be identified and known. Similarly, until one listens, that the practices that are available for one to adopt, the other practices that must be rejected, those cannot be known until one first listens.
Oh, yeah, that painting says that the other Digiere, the Hazing the Gibukanda, the room shade, Gibukanda, the room the shade, nay, and the Gibukanda, the Korangi, Yadan, Yum Dizolata, and the set say Pulaya, and he should to be paying Karim, soon the city, the Ganda Duata, city the water, taking city water, Kanshi, to be yini. Tejunes to Kanshi Tejunes labor gawa tala tengu cheese share cheese timu meba yi rangi shene cheje rangi she jang lini yue rik sedwa o tsikshi joros
Oh, di parece suzebre susombre
di inju kerabro
low
tasun garisumi suena
logila
kebu dawake
나오게요.
기부 다와게 야가 유물라 고랑이 취시야게 당송되는 세상 방법적으로 아니 고랑이 개와 파마를 라스트 말했으나 지어라. 세상까지 저랑 세나지 기어 말했어. 최초로 배우는 마도 계시가 같아버 있나요? 단독이 베들 간주 수수고 시작을 제 녀바 있나요? 녀를 그래서 뭐래서 나와.
From the story of the Bodhisattva Sutta come these verses on page 56. And Sutta Soma said when he had told his parents that he would, the king and the queen, his mother and father, that he would reward the Brahmin for his eloquence, the mother and father said, king and queen said, don't do that, that you're much too lavish, much too liberal with your funds for that. He said, no, that's not the case. And he said, through hearing you become faithful, and your delight in virtue becomes steadfast. Wisdom arises and delusion will vanish. This is worth buying even with your own flesh.
퇴바집에 표현될 때는 아니 많아도 가르치겠으나 아니 랑이다 군조로 처벌해야 돼. 군조고 때나 보여야 랑도 그냥 주고도 가가 시험도 용거레스 아니 때마 맞아 될래 소소도 레벨 장과다 될래 장야를 쪼와게 왔다. 대주배 유화매 템포 용야 간다. 아니 간다 퇴배 표현을 되는 용거 요레스 단다 디순거 디치들라 아니 바람이다.
So in short, from listening, what benefits come? One relies on what is most excellent, having first listened and thereby having become familiar with what is excellent. One relies upon what is excellent. One has faith in what is excellent. One's faith and confidence in that which is excellent is lasting. These are all consequences of listening. And so for this reason, Sutta Soma said to the king and the queen, the Brahmin, the eloquent Brahmin, is worthy of this reward because of the benefits that flow from listening.
아니 계속은 티무가 랑이 몸바 간데 티무가 봐 내가 세바 지그리 되는데 이들 아니 랑이 루게 수고바 자식 라바다 깜고 뜸니 아니 최연이 유연표고 이거나야 비제레스 리바레 마리바 마레 리바레 제단디 제고레스 아니 디송레스
And from listening arises wisdom, the wisdom that arises from listening, and then the wisdom that arises from meditation. And these forms of wisdom dispel the ignorance which otherwise enshrouds a person. So for that reason, Sutta Soma says to the king and the queen, for that reason it would be worthy, it is worthy of an offering of one's own flesh, one's own hands, feet. That would be fair. It would be fair to give those as offerings because the reward following from listening is so great.
홍보를 유지하면 자원이 never 매배에서 냥이 내지 매 예버 치부 봉기 초 자가 벨당 때지 초냐도 여러 남지 채나 계초다 저러면 이제 계초다 초진하는 개별 구와 계 퇴배 진주 누가 제바 보고 계를 또는
And continuing on, it is the friend, or rather, hearing is a lamp that dispels the darkness of delusion, the supreme wealth that cannot be carried off by thieves, a weapon that vanquishes the foe of confusion. It is the best of friends, revealing personal instructions, the techniques of method. It is the friend who does not desert you in times of need, a harmless medicine for the illness of sorrow, the supreme battalion to vanquish the troops of great misdeeds. It is the best fame, glory, and treasure. It is a supreme gift when you meet with noble beings. Among an assemblage, it delights the wise. The result of hearing is to engage in substantive practice. You will be released with little difficulty from the fortress of rebirth.
아니 문바가 파 매버 차도도 문바 나고가 매버 차도도 대나시 퇴바들레 연리 아니 말아서 세미나 몽보가 세도 그래서 어디 지금 뭐들 무슨 거라서.
Now, to expand upon the verse, in the first case, in the morning, when the sun rises, the darkness of night goes. In the same way, when one listens, the darkness of the mind goes.
올라서 꿈을라서 매기 너지셨다 말아서 너 스스로 세다 무의가 대샤 가리 여바 있나야 아니 너기 초 가리 여바 있나야 텔레장 아니 퇴백이 너디 다쳐와레스 아니 너디 저게 가르라는 왕치어 초세그레 왕충만 롱세그레 라운드 냐버기 꾸이세그레 가르지나 그 라운드 네바케야다 타지도 편바 연구 말에 그 다른데 편바 유유지게 다른 네바 친구들의 용세그레스 아니 퇴백이 너르디기 거두이 있는 편방도 내가 요 말했어. 어디서 이거를
A supreme wealth that cannot be carried off by thieves. Whatever wealth we have, gold, silver, cash, whatever wealth we have, better by far than that is the wealth of listening. And that's because a stronger person, a more powerful person can take your wealth. A poor person may beg for your wealth. A person equal in strength to you may cunningly steal what you have. But the wisdom of listening, the wealth of listening, cannot be taken by another.
이거 죄송한. 나도 왜 가정 천재에서 뭐야? 나 만화도 빅하게 치료를 자주 좀 보고 있는 아니 좀 받자매자 카베자 천재만 보고도 어디 나신 딱 만화대로 뭐네 이게 장원에 뭔가 말이봐 봐 좀 해야겠다 그 천재들 사바디 아니 퇴바들의 소식.
Now, when we have an adversary we want to eliminate, we need some sort of a weapon to eliminate them. The real enemy that we have, though, is internal, or rather is ignorance, the ignorance of the mind, and the very best weapon for eliminating that ignorance of mind is listening, the wisdom of listening.
Oh yeah, that's another pamper to develop together. And but do me several check that then another Togoma way around talk Suzuki Yamdo Dama to Jiji, IQ, Jiji, Togoma, we won't see it was in a young that another Susu, one get that Tabsu, Mangat, but Toji chose another Langala Dogo you in the Susu Yakuji Chabu you in the Kandaji, need to Yaba Kandaji, Yongo you in a young, and a young to a Togo Choli. It
is the best of friends revealing personal instructions, the techniques of the method. We have friends, and in our effort to find satisfaction and avoid dissatisfactions, hanging out and identifying those with whom we feel close provides that to a certain extent, but what really brings satisfaction, what is actually constructive, is awareness of the path and the situations encountered in the practices along the path, and the best companionable support in that is listening and the wisdom of listening.
Oh, yeah, that is so said, northern longitude. Kazuji Mango Yoba, the Yakuta, Yoba Ina Yang, Tinane, that Suzuki Yangatso, such a bit to just pay, changing the two bottom day yourself, Mado to judge yourself, and it is to pay Yangatso, the level Ina, and then run to Shembaji and go collect qualified round Kashik Yuru, Kashik Roba Chimatu, Chagre, Kashik, and Changa Yuru with the young cigarettes. And Tobadigi Kazu round, Kazu needs to do Chiba in the Tobadigi, round pen talk, the Kazu in the Tobo, none in Tobo, Yakshuri Chagres.
It is the friend who does not desert you in times of need, whether we are wealthy in cash or possessions or other resources, whatever the case may be. Those things may desert us in the worst of circumstances, when things become very dire, whether it's the dangers of being in the wilderness or being in a war zone or wherever we may find ourselves. And at those times too, friends may, out of self-preservation, sneak away from us and or decline to help us when we're in need. That all may come to pass in all likelihood, but the steadiness of listening and the wisdom that comes from listening it surpasses that of ordinary resources and friends, and for that reason listening is said to be a friend who does not desert you in times of need.
Oh yeah, that didn't do what it never maybe young man says, oh yeah, that is another Jigana. And another that takes another loot, the way you are the nation, the way the man say, oh yeah, man doing by and it's not the chiller pen and chiller, the you would was. That not the turbo dig any that did it never can never pember by she will spend a donation what a neck by in a pocket, no pember to never be any Kadu whom are responsible.
A harmless medicine for the illness of sorrow. In our life, when we become ill, there are medicines, antibiotics, and things we can take for each particular illness or infection that we have, but they won't be effective for all the illnesses that we have. When you have one illness, you have one specific treatment, and another requires a different specific treatment. In the case of listening, it is always beneficial, always effective, and never harmful.
Oh yeah, that did not occur. Never chamber, Pungi chokes about never joke with Potter, then another corner, Suzuki Paget. That's it. So, the Yagato cause led over in a young, and 말을 뿡게 예바도 파세와 제바다 아니 가장 먼저 남리 강 마시기도 하다 나도 예바 친구 그래서 예바 친구 시도자만 예주 친구 라바도 들어와서 예주 친구들이 출봉 무대를 사서 출봉 내가 아니 나도 베시다 다들 와는 신이 뒤들이 신이 때문에 아니 마태버전은 예바도 예바 치쇼라고 어딘데 예바 친구 이바이나 양 아니 되게 배우기 파세기를 했어
The Supreme Battalion to vanquish the troops of great misdeeds. Whatever danger from adversaries we face, ordinarily one faces those with some with one's own forces. And as I described last week or the week before, when the adversary, the principal adversary, for us are negative misdeeds of ours, and most grave of all those misdeeds is abandoning the Dharma. And later, as we proceed and look at the proper way to rely upon a spiritual mentor, also betrayal of the spiritual mentor or duplicity with the spiritual mentor, this is another grave misdeed. And so the wisdom of listening allows one to overcome the misdeeds of these sorts.
아니 벤조 그래도 건가양 아니 이제 퇴발할 때는 연구했어 대자마자 아니 말아도 취업 돈을 셔봐이나 아니 배 치매는 치매 대화 담아 상계기 고방인지 아니 퇴발할 때는 도구를 해서
It is the best fame, glory, and treasure. Fame is reputation. Fame is one's being celebrated publicly, and glory is wealth and power. And in the first case, all those fame and worldly power and the rest originally comes from listening. But more importantly, in the Buddha Dharma, the good fortune in one's future lives, and then ultimately the achievement of Buddhahood, these two follow from listening. It is a supreme gift when you meet the noble beings. When one encounters scholars or excellent individuals, the custom is to give a gift of appreciation upon meeting them, and best of all gifts when meeting an illustrious person is to say a word about the four truths of the noble ones, or about the view of emptiness. When we're with acquaintances, when we first meet friends or acquaintances, and give them, a greeting gift. Best of all gifts is a word about the truths of the noble ones, or emptiness, and that is the very best of gifts. Among an assemblage, it delights the wise. In a big gathering, when removing the dissatisfaction, dispelling the suffering of people is the objective, when dispelling the suffering of others is the objective, then, and one is in a big group, if one has engaged in listening, then one has what is required, what one can offer, what is necessary, what needs to be understood in order to dispel that suffering. And so with that, leaving aside ordinary friendships, embrace and recognize listening as supreme of friends. And with that, we'll draw our class to a close.
Question?
Yeah.
Regarding listening, the benefits of listening, it seems to me we skipped over an important thing of listening to the wrong view. There are a lot of people, organizations, and political things that definitely have wrong view, and they capture a lot of people's attention, including unfortunately some of the monastics that are pushing a wrong view politically. So could you briefly talk about the benefits or the wisdom of finding teachings with the right view, and the benefits of avoiding people who are teaching the wrong view?
Also, 아니 특별히 아니 계신계의 톤에 아니 순서 있네요. 그래서 아니 책 루도하고도 때 아니 록다 특별히 때는 록다 아니 쉽죠 아니 랩시그래 아니 페나한테 아니 시든라 아니 록다 아니 벨킨 기 라마든 베만 보여래 아니 디 년캔든서기 년캔든서 이 초네 아니 록다기 초라 아니 쉽죠 랩데요래 어 제상 게시기 록다다 아니 따와 양다바 아니 예워치네 특별히 때네 촉수 겨로디 기거래야 직승으로지
원티다 나가서 간다 스데세 부분 상고 예 디체와 고랑이 기기 고 당문의 고랑 유지가 제 미세하고 상변의 상변의 부자단 제 말에 고랑 신이 부자다 채 아니 신이 그 신이 로봇 때문에 때네 아니 거기 배 민망보세야다 메시아사고야다 비주버 가르쳐서나 아니 고랑이 신이 로봇 때네 tö바 간다 로봇 때네 아니 고랑 디버디게 싸워와 이날 제만 개부터와 더부터 제는 고랑이 아니 자가 고랑 tö배 배송 아니 최기 이미 그 고액 이미 송 최기 배송 어디 tö바를 때는 고랑 계세다와 마세버체 그럼 비아 공부 출신 예말 와서 제가 네 tö배기 로가디 딱한다 수수 마이게 제 탑시되는 수수다 셔츠라도 남지 싫어 제가 치고로 와 마도신 받다 이렇게 말해서
Now, from the story of Saudasa the cannibal, who was a cannibal and a murderer, he wasn't originally a cannibal and a murderer. He became a cannibal and a murderer because he initially relied upon the advice of a mentor who suggested that this was a viable way to survive, and so it was based upon his listening to this advice that he engaged in such grave misdeeds. And then later, when he met the Bodhisattva Prince Sutasoma, and Prince Sutasoma described the benefits of the Buddha Dharma. And in this case, Saudasa, the cannibal, didn't eat Sutasoma, but rather recognized the truth of Sutasoma's advice and teachings, and recognizing its value, improved his own life, his own behavior. This was the process really of discriminating wisdom, discriminating intelligence. It was native intelligence on Saudasa's part, and apart from using your own discriminating intelligence, there's no avoiding mistaken views.
Krishna tell us a lot about consciousness and also called mindfulness, right? And Krishna also tell us some contemplation or comprehensive wisdom from contemplation, right? Wisdom from contemplation, wisdom from listening, wisdom from meditation. So what's the difference between the mindfulness, consciousness, and with the contemplation or comprehensive?
Can you repeat that? I don't think I quite understand.
Mindfulness, consciousness means you are not lazy. You need to, be alert to learning, right? But comprehensive and contemplation means you understand something, right? Yeah, this both of them look like all related to the mindfulness, right? What's the difference? I'm not sure if you understand, because it's really confused sometimes,
Okay.
Yeah, if you're alert, if you
Alertness.
keep consciousness, that means you're very focused on this teaching. You're very, pay attention to that.
Okay.
But on the other hand, we also have some wisdom from contemplation, wisdom from comprehensive. So the contemplation and the mindfulness, is there any difference between contemplation?
Okay. Okay.
Meditation? No, not meditation. Meditation is practice.
Okay.
But mindfulness and contemplation.
Mindfulness. I can't quite make out the difference of the two. Yeah.
I think the comprehension that comes from contemplation,
Yes.
versus mindfulness, engaging in that activity.
Oh.
Something is very confused. These two. So I want to know the difference
Between the mindfulness
and the
act of contemplation.
Right. Something like that. Yeah.
It's so much what it's so much. Oh, the answer. And down and the Samsung share the keeper. The answer. Lost.
The Samsung share of Chenmo Shadi so Karsana things into Biaki. You'll shout things into Biaki. Could you draw your Chiba Mares with services?
Courage, Joe, you listen.
Samsung share of your there's a share of the Jeva. Jeva, that Chenmo Shadi, Jeva Gomare. Musum Yorwa. Musum Yor, Chenmo Topa Yor, Musum. Samsung share of Quran, Chenmo Shadi. Should share to your house. Samsung share of Topajor, Jabati, the Temani should share we now your. In a Temani Shapran, Samsung share Tava Yomar, Temani Shamoju, Musum Yorwa, Musum is a Temani share in a Dimare, Samsung share Mara. Also, what the day keepers in Belize are good. It is good. Samsung share the Tambani sending on the Tambani send to Tambani and new Tambani share the union to take the she never done you or the love. Yes, Kibardo, the two Jabadi shoot too much, Yunga, Tambani share Manga, Tambani share Samsung for a year called Bojum.
The other conjunct.
Samsung,
the Jiminier shot that Tegi. Some share of Capio.
Watching Tambani Shannon Musum
Low.
Musum Tambani Shadina talk was some Jung Shira down Juniga. Also, 거기 되는 투중 실업되는 내 제바만도 리어가 공중이어만 어디에 개발이 왔어. 이제 어디에 되어서 맞어.
Okay. Now, so what I was able to make out is that there's the close contemplation, the four close contemplations of body, etc. And these are causes for the development of mental stability or mental concentration, samadhi. And so this is one part, and then the other is the wisdom arising from contemplation. Now there's a relationship; they're connected, but the wisdom arising from contemplation is inferential, and the four close attentive meditations that are the cause of samadhi. These are close attentions that are direct. They are direct experience, and so in those direct experience, there is not the inferential awareness of the contemplation, or rather the wisdom that arises from contemplation.
간단히 전반이 샤승이죠. 전반이 샤를 보란 되지는 전반이 샤승이 이제 따이는 군이 딱딱 개와 말이야 우선. 이 저요. 그래서 이내한다 가지고 삼중 실업들라 전반이 샤기 나오고 그 내가 찍고 어서 따이는 전반이 샤나 무슨 지어와 무슨 되게 거기 퇴중 실업나 요말 어서 퇴중 실업다 나 삼중 실업나 요말 어서 거기서 그 공중 실업제 야 니즈 토와 차사와 어디에 개발되어
The close awarenesses, these and the wisdom arising from contemplation are not contradictory. There is a connection, there is a relationship. That is, the wisdom arising from contemplation and the activity of the four close contemplations are similar, but in the four close attentions or four close awarenesses, these are involved in direct cognition, and so for that reason, that the wisdom arising from contemplation being inferential is not involved in the four close awarenesses insofar as they are direct cognitions. And so in that way, the four close awarenesses or attentions are in a way a practice a bit more elevated. And then the class on the Bodhicharya Avatara, we will consider conscientiousness and samadhi, mental concentration, and this will also help to resolve your question.
Okay, very good.
No, I was just going to say that mindfulness is a product of the wisdom that comes from contemplation, and he seemed to have a question of what is the difference between mindfulness and contemplation. So
Dating goyality jimbat near shashi and a samjung sheraki dribu Yes, there's a connection and it is a result.
그래서 가지는 전반년 신앙은 네 삼중유대로 어떻게 딱 걸어서 보면 돼. 이게 로그자가 되겠지 그래서.
You know, when we practice vipassana, the insight meditation, the insight meditation, vipassana, is that achieving a direct cognition or inferential?
활동 내가블라 대안에 제바르베 원숨르베.
오늘도 너무 무슨 신의 공중
Direct.
공중지대로.
Is a direct cognition, and it is a form of cognition that is wisdom arising from meditation.
사동의 인주 신의 양라 임발라 아니 신의 가서 제버칭 말와 사동의 제버칭으로 제가 공중이 뭐 제버칭 말해서.
As a branch of samadhi, it is a branch of samadhi engaging in examination. And as samadhi itself or serenity meditation does not involve examination, it is therefore a cognition and an examination of the wisdom arising from meditation.
Going back to the analogy in the beginning about the monkey who his doors open, is the end goal to make the monkey sit still or to close all the windows and doors or both, or to get the monkey out?
아니 배디 sonso 아니 티오기 배 아니 칸바니 고치네 아니 야르마르 규네 조그로 어디 다니 미교 파르투프디 아니 티오디 아니 크리사 아니 국교 마테브네 아니 랑사르 샤야르베 야메나 디 고츠마 갸야르베 야메나 아니 티오디 킬로라 피야르베 가르베
그래서 뷰로 뷰 남시 장모들 뷰 차리로 뷰 차리 미칸보 따지라서 미칸보를 미칸보 더서 중이지들의 통으로 하고 저기서 많은 걸 딱에 때 저희 이 미즈 그 칸보는 얘가 보게 칸보 약보지 칸보 더서 줄수 있게 힘이 내고 와서 그 된게 열었어
수증이 됐어
뷰
간데스 피아네
저도
가르치
장비로 와 장비도 많은 것들이 딱 입사도 돼서도 된거로 와 뒤도 그 미기 한번서 뺐다는 그 반드시 보여서 그 된게 열었어 이내 그 차에 발라서도 나사로 나도 한번 해야 되고 제사 때때지 다들 들는다 딱 이내 다다 거기 한번 뷰지가 좀 샘지로 와 샘디 가다 나서 수술을 나와요 말아서 샘 코랑이 그 가지고 샘 남도 갑자기 망백게 이제 샘 뷰되고 딱 샘도 가르쳐오는 뷰도 정말 다음에도 남도 소소 내가 모두 어디 나시 샘도 수수수 나와는 이제 아니 고발 신내기 뭐 땡이지 뭐 내투바 어디 지마지마다 파동도 신내기 뭐 깨지네 아니 샘 수수 나와도 저거 와 항상 어디 나시 뷰도 치료 맞으면 나는 까투어 버려서
Mamma tu bache gores
어디 저기네 저 그리고 이다당이네 가서 되기로 나한테 거 나무 주기 대주고 어디 나시 셈이 뭐이고 아니 정말 신내들 하동이 뭐를 깨지는 배 땡이지 뭐 깨투가 어디 미 람링 미 타도 들어와
Yes, so this monkey then, if the monkey were to get very cold in the building, so cold that he stopped moving around, or they stopped moving around, this monkey, they might begin to daydream. Oh, if I had, when I warm up, wouldn't it be great if this were a 10-story house and I improved it and expanded it in all these ways. When I warm up, I'll do that. So cold and not moving, it imagines all that it might do. But then when it warms up, it'll actually just get back to bouncing around. And but the mind, the monkey that is the mind that is likened to the monkey has no autonomy and no independence right now because of the discursive thoughts and conceptual thought that constantly agitate it. And agitated by them, the mind follows inclined by them. And so the objective is to still the monkey, to calm the monkey, calm the mind down somehow, whether it takes, punishing the monkey so that it stays put, or it takes closing all the doors and windows so it stays put. The objective is to begin to control the mind, and not to throw the mind out, not to evict the mind, but to begin to control the mind and discipline it so that it has some autonomy. And so the shamatha and the vipassana are methods for achieving that.
자기는 당보디 근데 지원했다고 태야들 해서 그렇지. 근데 이마 대저들이요 방고 나비지 랑글 버도다 방지도 어 지원했다고 말에는 대저들이니가 또 텐투 말하니 최제 되게 말하니 강가 이모 말왔다 되게 강가 용하니 당보디 치워템을 해주셔 치워도 템바이나 아니 치워도 팀주 망고 열대 야보지 템바이나 아니 네 최제다 아니 쌤디다
Now, the mind may be lashed down to stay put, and the best method for first lashing it down is to contemplate or recollect the imminence of death, contemplate the imminence of death. And then following from that, awareness of the imminence of our death and momentariness, then follow all the other meditations such as of the preciousness of the human rebirth, of the Dharma as all that is beneficial at the time of death, and so on. But the very first means for lashing down the mind is to contemplate imminent death, and then from there proceed.
다른 number 7 제도를 틸 차도 티 number 7 롤 차도 되고 레저를 차도로 일단 권한식 간다 랑 되어만 말아도 차고에서 유 되어만요 어디를 축 치쇼를 다도 좀 말아도 셈바도 축 치쇼도 유튜브 망쇼도서 아니 배주 망쇼 당사대 지금 되어만이 돌아 는 아주 셈도 망쇼 당기고 가서 제가 말아도 미 메시지 주님한테 상관도 땅 있는 아주 미기 돈은 통해가 돈은 잡아게야 늦었다 늦은 망쇼 어제다 내일 잡고 갈래 잡아 주 잡아게 맞추고 주 용용용다네 선바도 주 남도 용다네 제만 남도 되게 바까 아니 동반이 또 되게 식으로 어디를 식으로 와서
We've described consciousness or mind as consciousness, mind as awareness, as the internal mental consciousness. Mental consciousness through the sense organs apprehends forms and apprehends sounds and apprehends sounds and scents and flavors and textures and the 5 sense objects. We call these the 5 sense objects. And mental consciousness is for us ordinarily our sole occupation, that which occupies us entirely. All of our interest, inclination, all of the time that we spend is directed towards these 5 sense objects. And in a day in the life of ours, we will encounter apprehend a form or apprehend a sound and be inclined towards it, aroused by it, grow interested and attached to it, and the purpose of the contemplations that we consider here is to gradually reduce the involuntary inclination, reduce the discursive conceptual thought, and ultimately gain the autonomy of mind that penetrates emptiness.
아니 동반이게 전다 교부시엔토야로 당고 수기 때도 동반이게 전다 잘해야 돼. 너는 잘해야 돼. 깔레카와에 단 당고 샤워해서.
It is significant that in the Prajna Paramita Hridaya, the Heart Sutra, form is described as empty. Form is empty, and of the 5 sense object forms are difficult to comprehend in their empty nature, and so it is put at the head of these. If the mind is able to gradually disincline itself from attachment to form, then quickly following that, the mind will realize emptiness. So with that, our Sunday class comes to an end. We've considered the benefits of listening and said a word about the view of emptiness and considered the practices of the Dharma. And by the merit of these contemplations, may our practice of the Dharma continue to grow and develop, and may the pains and crises experienced in our world gradually come to an end. And with these ends in mind, we recite our closing prayers. Rinjin choki magyaba jabnyanyaba gyube chobe Ninje jimbu yiro gyuba ye Lende deje sawara cheba Teje yawe minjun tene Leru chanchu lamki jibe Taru namki yila vedejin Yawe zeba rindu gyongyuruji Anzan rube tujin rujeji Yoge seje medan bibi Zera kundu yawe mabayi Lambda lambda rewa magyuruji Kanze tekwa shola chujeji Tujin rula zumba liyi Tuden namgi tatu rojeji Taji yazo chugun yagyuji. From my two collections, vast as space that I have amassed, from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind, whose wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of the paths with the complete teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have discerned. May I hold Buddhist teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, but once spread have time, may I offer this treasure of happiness to aid all sentient beings. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by following the complete graduated path to enlightenment and the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings that eliminate adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. Dagi jini sabe gewa tihi tendan rowa kuna Kevara jesu lozan daba yi tembe nyimbo rindu seje Kare rave purve shingande bendan dewa malu jumene Jere zewa pinzin yaso yi shabe site vanu tenyochi Jabe vavu jira kemba dhan kundu sambo leyan deshente Dena kunji jesu dalo chiri yewa dita tamje rabdu Luzun jebe yewa tamje Mowa kama shokdo mapa Agi geve zawo digu nya sambo chiri rabdu Nanju sencho rinpo che ma ye vana yindu Kewa nyapa mepa ya kone kondu e sho I dedicate whatever virtues I have ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Sandrapati shine forever. In the land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenmo, please remain until cyclic existence is ended. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantha realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits and best love I dedicate all these fruits of virtue with the dedication praised as the verse by the victorious Gostam 1 3 times, so that I might perform the noble bodhisattvas. May the supreme joy of bodhicitta has not arisen for us in a row. May that which has arisen not diminished,
but increase more.
Thank you. Oh yeah, so this week, remain close with the companion listening. There's probably tea too. Oh yeah, enjoy some tea and some croissants and also an exchange about what we've been considering too.
Could you repeat that? I believe
There's-
your mic is off.
Oh, there's tea and there's tea and croissants and also we can talk a little bit about what we've been listening to or understanding.